Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Keys of the Castle podcast. So, today's episode, I think, is going to be another short continuation of Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. As of the recording of this, though, today, it's actually D23 day, I think. So, I haven't seen any of those reports yet. There's already some stuff out on YouTube that I have seen. But I haven't checked any of it out, so I don't know what's happening yet. I could have, should have, or maybe will do a prediction episode for D23, but at the moment, I haven't been able to think through that yet. But I hope it's all good stuff. I've seen a couple YouTube captions here and there. It looks like there's been some announcements made. I saw a little icon on a YouTube thumbnail that looked like the new Avengers campus ride, like a picture of the ride vehicle that they had announced last year. So I'm guessing there's some announcement to do with that. I heard some other predictions, and I think the biggest thing I'm nervous about is a couple things. So one is the Big Thunder Mountain, or the Behind Big Thunder Mountain announcement for Magic Kingdom. So I don't know if they're announcing anything about that as of now, but I just feel like the current Disney parks that there are, especially Magic Kingdom, I personally consider Magic Kingdom and Disney World to be, don't want to say a sacred park, but it is an iconic historic park, in my opinion, to me, in terms of the Disney parks across the globe. I would consider that one of them, but so I say that, and I say that to say, to me, that space is kind of like, it should be used well. Like, it shouldn't be used for, I don't know if I should call it experimentation, or just like the ideas that are just like fast and loose. I know they don't do anything that's fast and loose in terms of like how long it takes for things to come into fruition and stuff. And I'm sure they've been kicking around ideas for years, potentially, I would guess. But I don't know. I just feel like they shouldn't just throw anything, just any old thing in there, like any just, I don't know, I don't want to say quick money grabs, but like just things like that. Basically, I'm nervous that they're going to make that either into, I don't think they're going to make it into Encantoland, because I think that's going to somewhere else if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering that correctly. But I think the biggest thing that I'm nervous about for that is the Villains Land. I just don't think that belongs in Magic Kingdom or anywhere in the current Disney parks. Like, just create a separate park with the villain section or something like that. I don't even think it should have its own completely separate park. But anyway, that is a topic for another day, I suppose. For now, though, and then the other thing I'm nervous about is just announcements for Disneyland, because that is, a sacred, iconic park to me. But anyway, all that stuff aside, D23 aside, the main topic I wanted to talk about for Star Wars Rise of the Resistance is this idea. So there's the main idea that I think could and would have made Rise of the Resistance better, and this is without changing the structure of the ride or anything crazy. I feel like this could even just be fixed with some scripting and maybe some other things. But basically, it's the fact that, I don't know, to me, I don't know if this is structuring my point the right way, but execution is everything. So the storyline of Rise of the Resistance, in terms of the guests being part of the, rebellion or whatever, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, or that, they're recruits. So they're like resistance recruits, right? So I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, actually, that idea in terms of the storyline for that ride. But I think it could have been executed a lot better in terms of how that, like, idea and that part of the story and that part of the guest experience, how that plays out and transitions from regular guests in line and going into, like, trying to be immersed in the ride and story of the ride. So my take on it is that Disney was trying to just do everything with this ride like new. They were just trying to make everything just new. They wanted to do something completely different, completely bigger and newer, which is fine, I guess. But there's certain things that I feel like if they're not broken, you don't need to fix them. And one of those things is to me, what I consider a genius idea. And I'm passionate about this, especially on this podcast, because this is basically what Keys of the Castle is meant to be all about. The keys kind of represent, like, the creativity behind, Disney and just theme parks in general. But the key of the supposed castle in the title of the podcast channel really represents creativity. So what I think is just one of the most brilliant creative ideas to ever, like, affect or be part of the Disney theme park experience is the ideas that came from, I think it's Tony Baxter, the Imagineer that worked on Indiana Jones, Thunder Mountain Railroad, Star Tours, and many, many, many other attractions. But specifically Indiana Jones and Star Tours. So he came up with the idea that in the story of the ride and in the experience of the ride, it's much more immersive and easier for guests to be immersed if you have the guests playing the part of guests and tourists in the story of the ride. So it's just much more believable. It's easier to believe. And let's be honest, when people are going on these rides, they're not thinking too much about this. They're not thinking too much about what's the storyline of the ride. Like, nobody ever even thinks that, really, except for us, like, super fans, I guess, if you want to call it that. Hence why people still go to, people go to theme parks like Six Flags, which is obviously a completely different theme park, but it's like, more than anything, people are there for the experience of the ride. They're not there for the story, if that makes sense. I don't really think people are too worried about that. What I think is that even though the story of the ride and what part the guests play in the story of the ride, according to just the creative storyline of the ride, I think it is a very significant bonus in the ride, but at the same time, it is still just kind of a bonus. In terms of the average guest experience, like, people just want to go on a ride. They want to go on a good ride. They want to go on a ride with, like, cool effects, cool, fun experience. But, people don't really question the storyline too much. Like, honestly, I feel like, for example, Pirates of the Caribbean, like, nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, but, like, to me, like, it was extremely rare, and in my experience, nobody had questioned the storyline of that ride for years. Like, how long has that ride been open? Since the late 60s, I think. 69 or 67 or something. So it's like, we went, like, 40, 50 plus years, 40, 50, 60 plus years before people even really started talking about, like, hey, wait a second, is there a storyline here for Pirates of the Caribbean? Like, it's just a cool, abstract, immersive, experiential ride, which is amazing, and it's great, and it's part of the creativity, and it's part of the experience. And to me, it just kind of feeds into the thrilling, kind of chaotic experience of the ride. I think it's a bonus that the storyline is not, super clear on that ride. So all that to say, the storyline is not something that people usually think about. It's just a really significant added bonus, but it is still a bonus. So that being said, when people ride Star Tours or Indiana Jones, I think it's just a very significant aspect of the ride experience, and just it's a very significant part of the experience overall, for how immersive and just how real, or how more so just immersive that experience is. So they went a different direction with Star Wars Rise of the Resistance because, again, I believe it was Tony Baxter that came up with this idea that if you make the guests a tourist or a guest in the storyline of the ride, it becomes more believable, and therefore it becomes more immersive. So to me, that's definitely the case. That totally works. I think they wanted to do something completely new, completely different for Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, but I think it could have been executed much, much better. So that's kind of my whole point with this entire podcast. I don't know if I'll touch on how that could have been done. I have had ideas in the past on how that could have been done. Maybe I'll save that for the next episode. I'm not too sure. But that's what I think could have been so much better in this ride, Rise of the Resistance, is to have something that's more just something that was executed. Because again, to me, it's all about execution. To me, they could have executed the part of the story that the guests are part of. They could have executed that better. So, I don't know if I'll be able to break all this down piece by piece in this episode, but one of the biggest things that comes to mind for me is the ride vehicle in Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. I know there's a scripting that Finn says, the bots, or the droids are programmed to get you out of here, or whatever it is. But it's just to me, there's not a clear enough explanation as to what the ride vehicles are. And to me, that is the biggest downfall of the execution of that storyline of the Rise of the Resistance experience, and, the guests being the recruits. So to me, what they could have and should have done, or at least one idea that I have to make that better, because I don't want to just criticize and not have any solutions to offer. And again, of course, maybe none of my ideas would work. But just something that I've thought about is, to me, what could have been a simple fix to make things better would be for the ride vehicle to, how do I say this? It would be that the First Order is still in charge of you and having you board onto the ride vehicle, and that things don't really go wrong until you're already on the ride vehicle. I think that'd be a huge, huge shift into the immersiveness and honestly excitement of the ride. I don't know if that's possible. Just, I don't know, just in terms of like cast members and whatever logistics, I guess. Yeah, again, I don't know if that's possible, but that's what I would have said, just because it would bring a lot more clarity as to what the ride vehicle is. I think, you could have it in the story or in the scripting where you can say, the ride, you can put it out there, that the ride vehicle is the, like, prison transport vehicle, like the ride, like, premise, I guess, or whatever it could have or should have been, you're getting onto the ride vehicle because you are taken as a prisoner you're going from point A to wherever else. And then, actually, the plot twist is that the droids are programmed by the Resistance. And, so obviously the, ride vehicle is overridden by the Resistance, and now we're trying to escape. And then, we get found out, and the whole thing unravels, and being chased, all that stuff. So, because to me, I feel like with the way it is now, it's just like, what is the ride vehicle? Like, what, I don't know. For me, when I ride the ride, I'm just like, what are we getting into? What is this supposed to be in terms of like the actual story? That, like, did I miss that? I guess because in the scripting of the ride, I think it's I always forget his name. Darn it. But basically in the scripting of the ride, you hear the Resistance saying, tell them it's a prisoner transfer, right? But, like, there's no explanation as to what the heck is that ride vehicle. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me that, needs more clarity on that, or that I feel like would make the ride much more immersive to me. But yeah, like, again, like, if you compare it to, say, Star Wars or Indiana Jones, it's like, it's very, very clear and makes the ride so much more immersive and believable and exciting as to what the ride vehicle is. Like, in Star Tours, you're stepping into sort of like a mini spacecraft, and you're taking off from the shuttle or whatever and going into outer space, and everything feels pretty real, and everything, I mean, it looks like you're kind of getting into a theater, but I mean, if you just use even an ounce of your imagination, then, it could be like you are loading into a spacecraft that is kind of just docked at a port. So, and then obviously Indiana Jones is even much more self-explanatory. You don't need to think anything or use any sort of imagination for that one. You're just on a freaking awesome Jeep, which is incredible. Excuse me. But yeah, with Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, it's a little different for me for that experience. So I don't know. I'll leave it at that for now. We can dive more into that on the next episode potentially. I'm excited to hear all these D23 announcements and thoughts. Mostly nervous, to be honest, because again, I'm someone that's very reluctant and resistant to changes being specifically made to Disneyland. I have no problem, no issue at all with Disney expanding on new things and building more things. I think that's great. Doesn't matter what it is, like, build more Avatar and build more whatever, build Encanto stuff and build whatever you want to do. That's part of the Disney kingdom or whatever. But to me, when it starts to affect the theming of an overall park experience, just depending on the park, to me it makes a big difference. And especially more so if you're going to be tearing something down and taking it out. That, I don't know, to me that's a little bit of a sensitive topic, I suppose. And not even in terms of like, oh, don't change anything, don't tear anything down. It's more so if you're going to start changing stuff, say at Disneyland or Magic Kingdom or whatever, But let's just say Disneyland, of course, because that's the main one I'm kind of, nervous about, I guess. Like, if you're going to start tearing things down at Disneyland or changing things, like, I just really feel like you should honor the iconic atmosphere and vibe and story of classic Disney and Disneyland itself, and make sure that it matches and flows with the rest of the park, and make sure it's not something that is just like a money grab or flippant or just trying to create a quick new shiny thing here or there. Like, I don't know, that's just my feeling about it, is make it intentional. So I know there's rumors like specifically about like putting Avatar Land where Finding Nemo is, or Autopia, or in Tomorrowland, or putting it, I heard a rumor a long time ago, this is probably not going to happen, because I think it's announced that they're putting it in California Adventure. I'm not sure, but like replacing Hollywoodland or replacing the Redwood Creek Forest or whatever it's called. Like, I don't know, to me those are, even Disney California Adventure, even California Adventure is classic Disney park to me at this point, in a sense. But even just the fact that it's connected to the original Disneyland. But anyway, my whole point is that if you're going to be taking stuff out of the park, I feel like there should be definitely a bigger, bigger weight or sensitivity to what's replacing it, and it should really align with the history and overall atmosphere of the park. Like, it shouldn't just be this weird thing where there's stuff all over the place and every land is just like lopsided with random things, and you have Star Tours, and then across is Avatar, and then you've got Fantasyland, and then Star Wars Land. Like, I don't know, it's starting to get pretty weird to me, all the different lands and attractions and things like that are being spoken about. I feel like there's not enough continuity, and especially with the original Disneyland, I feel like there should definitely be a respect and continuity of classic Disney across the park. Classic Disney, even in terms of, right up to the 90s, and that sort of portion. So, anyway, I hope it all just makes sense. I hope what I'm saying makes sense, and I hope whatever happens at D23 and the announcements and whatever Disney ends up doing makes sense. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited to hear, and I guess that's going to do it for this episode. So until next time, take care.